Hmm? Ah!
You're listening to the Run for Your Lives podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And this is the Run for Your Lives podcast.
This episode is the supernatural horror film Insidious Chapter 3, written and directed by Leigh Whannell and released June 5th, 2015.
Yay! I'm glad that we're doing this one, but I have to start off with the following statement. Leigh Whannell will always be Doug from Cooties to me.
Over specs?
Yes. There's something about Cooties. I don't know why. I need to revisit that movie soon, too. I mean, he is Specs. He's just responsible for so many great franchises, too.
Yeah.
That you can't... No, I'm sorry. He has to be Doug from Cooties forever. It's just how it goes.
Yeah, we got kind of an origin story. We'll get to that later when we're covering the characters and stuff. But yeah, this one played that route a little bit here. But yeah, Insidious Chapter 3. We are back in the realm of Insidious, diving back down into the further again to continue on this series. I mean, we might as well finish them all up, talk about them. We've done the first two. Those who've listened and know, me and Daphne actually went and saw the fifth movie, saw The Red Door in theaters together.
Yay!
So that was fun. So we'll get to that movie. We got two more. Well, we got one more than that one. So eventually we'll get there. So yeah, continue on this little journey. This little
it's very
astral projection into this world. We'll float on out there and see what we can talk about.
You know, it's funny that you say that about astral projection because this is the one that's different.
Yeah.
Kind of. With it being Quinn trying to communicate with her mother, that's kind of kicks this whole thing into motion, which is different than what we saw with the Lamberts.
Yeah.
This is also the first time that Leigh Whannell wrote, directed, and acted in the same movie. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering what kind of a challenge that was for him to do all three.
Yeah, this one wasn't really in the hands of James Wan, although he might have still had a part to play. Well,
yeah, he was not involved in his normal capacity for this one. Mm-hmm. However, we'll talk about it a little bit later, just how he just took a moment to insert himself into this movie.
Yes.
So, in the timeline of everything, this one is taking place in 2007. Insidious and Insidious Chapter 2 take place in 2010. I'll just continue on because I've got a few more production notes. Filmed in Los Angeles, California. Third film in the Insidious franchise, but a prequel taking place 3 years before the Lambert haunting. It's the third film Leigh Whannell wrote, but as we said, it's the first one he directed. Not only is this the first Insidious movie he directed, but this is his directorial debut for all movies because he had never directed a film before this one.
Yeah.
The budget was $11 million. It grossed $113 million. And just for fun, I looked up some of the budgets and gross results for some of the other movies, and it's been pretty consistent as far as the budget has been not what you normally get for a movie like this, but it's grossed a lot of money. So it's been very frugally invested in, I guess, this franchise, and it's paid off, I think, in the box office. It was 98 minutes long. Pake, as you do every week, bring us a synopsis.
All right. And a prequel set before the haunting of the Lambert family. We've said that like 4 times now. But we're really going to make sure it's overcome. You know what's going on. It reveals how the gifted psychic Elise Rainier reluctantly agrees to use her ability to contact the dead in order to help a teenage girl who has been targeted by a dangerous supernatural entity.
Yes. That explains it very well. This movie I had only seen one time prior to watching it again for this.
I had a question about that. I wondered, because like I know some of these, like you've only seen like 1 or 2 movies. So I was like, I was going to ask you, had you seen this one before?
Of course I did, because we went to see number 5 together. So I had to have seen all of them.
Well, I was trying to remember if you had, because when we went to the theaters, I was trying to remember if you had told me that you had watched all of them in preparation. I know I did. I had seen this one before, I think. Before then. I know I hadn't seen The Last Key up until then, but I didn't remember if I had watched this one or not. I still don't remember if I had seen this one before that time or not. Yeah, because I was trying to remember if you said that like you didn't have time to like catch up on them before or not.
I didn't have time to rewatch them.
Mm-hmm.
But I did have time, like I had seen them previously.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
So I've seen all of them. It's kind of interesting the way this one fits in with all of them. And it's gives us this opportunity to see Elise at a different point in her life before we got to meet her with the Lamberts.
Yeah. I do have one little question, because now that I was wondering like what exactly the time frame is, but then as you mentioned, it's 3 years. So then it's like, so just gonna leave poor little Foster out of this. Like he gets no mention whatsoever. Because I remember what made me think about the timing is when Carl and Elise are talking, and he's giving her this inspiration of like, look what you did for this boy, and showing her going through the pictures of Josh. He's like, he's a grown man now with a son of his own, and I'm like, he's got 2 kids. It's like Foster would have been young, but like he still exists. He's older than 3. Like,
yes. So basically,
write him off. We always just forget about him. Nobody
he's
cares.
getting ignored. It's like he doesn't exist. Poor Foster. It's like he doesn't have any role to play at all.
Right. It's like even then, it's like, and he's got a son of his own. That's foreshadowing that the spirits are going to be invested in Dalton in some way. Oh, doesn't he have enough? No, they don't. Even the spirits don't give a shit about Foster.
No, they don't. And you know what? Foster is the lucky one.
Yeah.
He ended up with the best possible outcome because it's like they don't even know he's there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's great. Good for you, Foster. We remember you here at Run for Your Lives.
But we're about it. We're the only ones that do.
So I'm looking forward to talking about this one. Now that we've seen all of them and we got to see that last one together, I'm really excited to kind of revisit this again because we're kind of getting reacquainted with old friends.
Mm-hmm.
In this episode we're going back to Elise. Now, for me, I wasn't sure who the main character. I mean, it's kind of Quinn, but I think it's really Elise.
Yeah, it's the way that we do our notes and break things down. Like, I have Elise at the top just because, that's the way you get our docu that we share. But then if we go with Elise first, it's like we're going to leave out huge chunks of the movie because like the actual main antagonistic aspect of this movie is towards Quinn. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of her story is vastly important to this, but I still think this is an Elise story because it really is at the end of the day, a story about who Elise was because we loved her in the first Insidious and to see, well, what gets her to that point. And it's kind of setting her up as here's why she wound up as invested in the Lambert story as she did. And there's little pieces. I mean, Insidious 2 dove into her history with young Josh and things like that. So we knew that there's that connection. But it's like, why was she so invested in helping Dalton? And so we kind of see that it's her way of embracing the uncertainty and her fear and going against it by the end of this movie and realizing she does have some kind of, calling and, she because of the gift that she has, she almost has this need to help.
Yeah. I mean, her arc in this movie is probably the biggest, just because we see her at the beginning and she's so kind of afraid. Like, she doesn't want to go poke the bear, basically. Use her gift.
Yeah.
And throughout the movie, we get to kind of see the shifting. Through different things, we start to learn how she got to be the Elise that we know.
Yeah, I was saying, like, this. So in these ways, Quinn and the Brenner family does play a big part because a lot of things revolve around them. But I think Elise, like I said, this is an Elise story where
it is.
It's a prequel for her to see her growth to, like I mentioned, why she's so invested. Because she's got almost this obligation, and what obligates her?
You'd have to be really obligated to face some of the things that Elise faces.
Yeah.
Because she faces terrifying demons, basically, and does it on a regular basis to help people. So you can understand why she maybe decided to take a break from it.
Yeah.
Which is where we find her at the beginning.
Yeah. So I assume, we're going to start with Elise. We've kind of already.
Yeah.
But yeah. So we'll jump over a lot of stuff, but we do that anyway, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Now to tie it together, of course, like you mentioned, the first time we see her is with Quinn showing up at her door, going to her through a recommendation. Quinn's missing her mom, who passed away to cancer, and she's trying to reach out, and she's wanting this connection. And Elise does have this ability. We've seen that through 2 other movies.
Yeah.
But you mentioned she stopped because this aggression of the spirits that are in the further, especially the Black Bride, the woman in black, Parker Crane.
Yes. Let's just talk about how amazing. Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah, because there's continued these spirits have connected to her, kind of tracking her, this connection, especially Parker Crane, where her life is in danger, so she is out. But after talking to Quinn, who traveled all this way to come see her with this desperation, and she just lost her husband, and to see Quinn kind of going through this loss and reaching for something, this grief is just making her really want to connect. She feels for her, and there's this kinmanship there, so she decides to make an exception for her. And yeah, so she doesn't go so well. The other spirits still are there. There's something connected with Quinn, and then we'll get to that. And I'm going to skip over so much.
You are, but it's okay because we will circle back to it when Quinn leaves Elise, because Elise does try to help her. She says to her, if you call out to one of the dead, all of them can hear you. And she basically says, don't try to do it by yourself anymore.
Which, kids in movies, obviously,
are going to do what they're not supposed to do.
Not going to listen to warnings like that. So the next time we see Elise is while she's in bed and she gets the messages from elsewhere that Quinn Brenner is in trouble. And against her fear, she decides to help. There was one little thing I noticed, of course, with Elise laying there in bed. It's just like one of those little things. I was like, nobody sleeps under their blankets in movies and TV shows. And it's such a weird common occurrence, and it drives me a little crazy. Like, obviously not every single movie and TV show, but it's like enough to where it's very noteworthy that when I'm watching things and people just lay down on their beds and go to sleep, and I'm like, what?
Why do you do that?
Why?
The first thing I do is get under the covers, pull them up around me, and get all snuggly. I love the covers. Like,
I feel like I could go back, like, would take way too much time, and I don't care enough. But, like, for every movie I've ever seen, it's like, if you go back and watch scenes of people getting in bed, like, you could probably notice quite a, big amount of them that just lay down on top of their covers and go to sleep. And it's like,
That's kind of defeating the purpose of having covers.
Why do they do it in movies? And like, is it like for some kind of, I don't know, continuity or something? I don't know.
I don't know, but I think that maybe we can let's start tracking it with the movies that we cover and see if it's a thing. Let's see if it's a thing, Pake. Let's see if your thought on it is really a thing.
Right.
Going forward.
Others write in. Have you noticed that? Is it something bothers you? Is it just one of my weird
quirks? It's not really a quirk, but pet peeve.
Yeah, there's just things that I notice that nobody else does. That's what I do. Anyway, so Elise deciding to help against her own kind of judgment and decision and fear, tries to reach out to Lily again, and somebody does show up, but it's like, hey, you're not Lily. You weren't invited, you breathless ghoul. What are you doing here? Quit leaving your gunk prints all over my floor and the wall. Gross. You stole my key and my necklace. You got into my stuff. You broke my lights. Bad spirit. Bad spirit. Think about what you do. She needs like a little spray bottle. Psst, psst. No.
Yes. Bad. Yes. I agree. A spray bottle would be great.
I mean, she did say show yourself, and he did, so can you really blame her?
Oh, but he was so creepy, right? Oh my god, and the noise from the breathing machine, it's just like, oh man.
I was trying to figure out what to refer to him as, and we'll get, because I've even got a section of just the entities and stuff, and it's he's credited as, and I was like, the man who can't breathe. Yeah, that's way too long for me to type into my notes all the time, so then I would just abbreviate it. It was TMWCB, or there's the man. For most of the time, I was just capitalized the man, and we know who I'm talking about. Or I think I called him Mick Breathy at one point.
Mick Breathy.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Hey, you don't watch Grey's Anatomy?
No, I don't.
But that's how they referred to a couple of characters on there as Mick Dreamy and Mick Steamy. Mm-hmm. So I'm just kind of okay.
McAsthma. McBronchitis. I don't know.
I called him the demon just because I got tired of writing the man who can't breathe.
Yep.
So
a lot of the man or TMWCB.
You know what? Something that's kind of cool about that is Leigh Whannell wanted the appearance of that demon to be kind of like the sloth victim that was in the movie Seven. Mm-hmm. So he went out and hired the same actor.
Nice.
It's what you do, right?
Right.
It's what you do.
So many times, I want a this person type, and then it's well, how about just that person?
Yeah.
But yeah, so then a lot of things happen, and Sean Brenner, Quinn's father, ends up back over at Elise's place next time we see her. And they're having a conversation about what can be done. What do we need to do? He's desperate and reaching out to help. So he's thinking, well, they don't show it. It's all off screen, but I could imagine the conversation between Sean and Quinn being very much you said you went to this psychic. Give me your address now.
Yep.
She started this shit. I'm bringing her back in. Let's go.
You have to imagine. And I have some notes on Sean, Quinn's father, too. And his whole arc in this movie. But Elise goes and tries to help. And then she gets terrified again and says, no, there's nothing I can do for you.
Yeah. Which, before that, though, when Sean's over there talking, I had to make notes. Of course, for those who watch the movies in order, which you should, I don't know how many people would watch this one without seeing the first two. But, Elise had mentioning about, she's going in there and her big fear is because this woman in black. The bride that keeps finding her, and because she went in to search for her husband after he passed away, and the woman found her. And of course, we, as mentioned, know this woman to be Parker Crane, who blames Elise for taking Josh away from him. And so now that he's tracked her down and telling her that I'm going to kill you, I will be the one. I will kill you this way. And Elise says, I believe her. If I keep doing this, I'm going to be killed by this entity. And, yeah, she was exactly, as she said, it did happen exactly just like that.
Yeah.
So it's that same thing when she goes over to the Quins, as you mentioned. She goes into this dark place, the further, whatever you want to call it. It goes by a couple different names in this movie. And she's trying to, I guess, confront the man, the demon here for Quinn, and see if she can just, we'll sit down and have a little meeting, and I'll see if we can, come up with a solution, meet in the middle somewhere. Now,
with some tea.
Yeah.
Let's have some tea and some little cakes. We'll have a little discussion.
Yeah, it's probably not going to be that civil. Probably just cast him out and get him away.
Yes, basically.
Somehow. Still don't really know how she does that, but she does it. But she does find some other stuff in there. Some other spirits, including a red door. More of a elevator.
Yes.
Doors, takes that form.
But that's on purpose. That's totally on purpose. Like that. There's also like a red archway under that Quinn walks under when she's going to visit Elise's house right at the beginning. It's kind of that tie into this entire franchise.
Yeah. But she goes through that elevator door into, you're going to say into the further, but she's in the further the whole time, but it's kind of this like real black space
real
that you've seen in the other movies. Yeah.
Yeah, she goes real deep in there.
And she finds a house there, and I was trying to figure out, I was like, what house is that? Is it the Lambert's house? Is it Josh's childhood home? But the more I watched it, I was like, I think it is supposed to be the Lambert's house. It's almost, because we know the further is kind of outside of time as we know it. We've seen the time loops in Insidious 2. To where it's almost the bride, Parker Crane, using what's coming in the future to mess with her, because we see what makes me go, okay, this is the Lambert house, is because as Crane finds her, he's strangling her to death in this exact same chair that she will actually be murdered in later, but in a previous movie time.
The way that this series plays with time, it can get a little confusing, which I think if we watch them in order of when they happened, then this would be the first movie that I think you'd watch.
Last Key is like, wait, yeah.
Yeah, so you'd watch The Last Key, then you'd watch this one.
But also, the second movie does play a lot into, like, there's flashbacks of...
It does.
So, yeah.
But I think, like, with the Purge series and the way that we're going through those, we're going through them in the order that they chronologically happened. In this case, with this franchise, I think you have to watch 1 and 2 before you get to this one. Because there are things that you kind of need to know.
Absolutely. And they jump all around with, time.
Yeah.
And so Elise, as you mentioned, she can't do it. She's really struggling with the situation. So then we see her out at a restaurant. She calls to her old friend Carl.
Yeah, you noticed that too?
Steve Coulter. Yeah.
Yep. Reg Monroe.
Yeah, she saves him for special occasions. But it just needs that pep talk. Like, what do I do here? I need to help, but I just can't. And he reminds her of this calling she has, her abilities. She saved Josh. She can save Quinn. She can do it. You're stronger than she is. You're alive.
Yeah, that seems to be the ongoing thing that she remembers. And
so, we see the next time that Elise encounters Crane, she's reminded of that strength and is able to hold him off. And, I like that. Bring it, bitch.
I love that.
And Crane
threw
just...
him against the wall. Yeah. So good.
Crane just backs off, and it's like, she's very strong right now, and... It's like, we'll continue this later at a different time when you're a little more worn down from some other things going on.
Yeah. She kind of... The bride kind of skulks away. Like, sulks and goes around the corner and kind of... Yeah.
Almost has this, like, Pennywise frown.
Yeah!
It's like, oh...
Yeah. Just kind of, disappears into the background. Like, oh, this isn't the time, but I'll be back, like you said. Mm-hmm. When you're worn down a little bit more, I'll be back to finish you off.
And after that, Elise also encounters what appears to be her late husband.
Jack, yes.
Yeah, but turns out to be a insidious, wink wink, ploy by the man who cannot breathe, pretending to be her husband in order to do what he does with the living and haunt them, mess with them. And even if he can't possess them like he does with Quinn, we hear from another victim he has a way of getting into people's heads and convincing themselves to take their own life, really in order just to, as Elise says, he wants to take the living. And instead of take their place in the light, he just wants to pull them into the darkness with him. Mm-hmm. And so he has that conversation with her, which is very dark. But luckily, Elise is way too smart for that. As soon as that kind of conversation starts, she sees right through him and knows exactly what this is.
She's like, my Jack would never, ever ask me to do that. Like, that's just not something that he would do. So she knows. Mm-hmm. But I don't think this is a very good way for the man who can't breathe to be making friends.
Mm-mm.
No.
Has he tried Bumble?
I don't know. He might do that. Does that app still exist?
I think. I've never used it, but I think so.
Me either.
Yeah. But yeah, and then this like other spirit, what you think is another like entity, demon spirit, this featureless girl, missing eyes and mouth and hands and feet that's crawling after Quinn earlier in the movie, which is like, that's terrifying. But then here we realize that is the half of Quinn's soul that the man already had.
Yes.
So Elise takes her and tries to reunite the two halves to save Quinn. And some things happen that require the Brenner family dynamic and Quinn that we'll talk about, but
in a minute.
It's kind of one of those, we're going to yada, yada, yada it. It's like, so I've got to save this soul and everything seems hopeless. Anyway, one thing leads to another. Quinn is back. The Brenners are fine. They have the closure that they need. And Elise isn't afraid to continue using her gift anymore. She, like I said, this kind of obligation, this calling, she realizes that she does owe it to use what she has to make things better for other people. And she also has a new team now.
And the dream team was born.
Yeah. We'll talk about them. But yeah, and then of course at the very end, seeing that even though all things seem bright and sunny and happy, Elise is still being tracked and leeched onto by some dark entities, including some new ones who might have found her through her travels and different things, including our Riffle Award-winning black and red face scary boy.
Yes, the amazing Joseph Bashara, who also did all of the music for this movie, like he did with the others.
And the music is, like, right off the bat, again, I think I've mentioned this in every movie, those strings, that, like, Insidious theme music is...
You know what it is when you hear them.
So good, but it gives you those goosebumps. It's so creepy, but it's so good. Like, even... I just let the credits roll when this movie ends, because it starts, like, it's real creepy. That theme really gets played out and stretched out, and it's just...
Yeah.
Oh, it's so unsettling, but I love it.
Yeah. I love this kind of group that is in charge of this whole movie franchise, like with Leigh Whannell, and just, you know, you've got Joseph Bashara who does the music, and just the different, like, Blumhouse, which we've talked about, can be hit or miss. It's not miss with this. Mm-mm. Definitely not miss with this.
And more hits as of late. We've talked about, like, with doing Megan and some other movies that have come out that, to where, like, what's the newest one that just came out? Night Swim?
Yeah, that one, I'm not sure about. I haven't
seen it yet.
Yeah.
I've seen the previews, and I'm like, again, with Blumhouse, it's like they took one, like, little kind of idea that on the, surface is like, that could be interesting, but can you make a whole movie out of that? What's the actual point? What's the story? What's the tale we're telling? And just because we got that with Megan, okay, AI doll. But what story are we really telling with that? And then watching it, you're like, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
And so I haven't seen it yet. I think I will. It's not like a Blumhouse is still not a run to theaters thing for me. But,
yeah.
But definitely keep an eye on these releases. So maybe we'll have to do that one. Because Smile was also one of those, right?
Yeah.
Smile was Blumhouse. So. Yeah, where it's like, again, it's just a very simple concept. But then it's for them to throw their own kind of stuff into it and make it worthwhile. And they've been doing pretty good with that. So I'm curious.
I'm looking up another movie. There's another movie that's coming out called Abigail. And it's not Blumhouse, but it's just making me... everything we've been talking about so far is just making me think about that one because I've seen like ads for it and I'm like, I think that could be a good one for us to cover. Whenever it comes out. It's coming out somewhat soon, I think. So, one thing we didn't talk about is Elise's dog. Did you catch the dog's name?
She said it a bunch, but I didn't ever write it down. So.
Yeah, Warren.
Mm-hmm.
That's a nod to Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which we still need to do The Conjuring at some point. I think we'll get through these first, and then we'll
will, and then we'll go to The Conjuring. Yeah. There's so many movies.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, that makes sense. I like that. Yeah. I didn't really catch that while watching, but yeah.
Yeah, and the dog kind of like just gives her these looks that make her realize in the first place that she should go and see Quinn. Mm-hmm. And that kind of helped push things in that direction.
Yeah.
And we talked about Jack. Jack actually killed himself.
Yeah.
Which I think was making it even more difficult for Elise because I think because of the nature of his death, she had to go to the dark places because she probably assumed he wasn't in a place full of light.
Yeah.
So do you have anything else on Elise?
I don't.
So Elise did say at one point, I thought this quote was interesting. Loving someone is delayed pain. Eventually you're going to lose them one way or another.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably, related to her loss of her husband and...
Yeah, it's a very pessimistic way of looking at things.
Mm-hmm.
However, for somebody who's been recently through pain, it's an understandable way of looking at things. And it's something it makes sense. But yeah, because it's true. I mean, I think of, all the people closest to me that I've lost. And it's just like, you do have those thoughts, like where it's just like, when I have really good times with somebody, when I'm really close to somebody and I'm like, but what if they die one day? And it's like, what is all this worth? Because then it's just going to hurt even more because of the connection. And so you do have those thoughts. And, but then there's the optimistic way of looking at the other side is like, yeah, but then after somebody's gone, then it's not really, you're not delaying that pain. Then what you're doing is you're stretching out the joy even when they're gone because you have so many more things and memories to look back on.
Exactly. You have the memories, the experiences that you have, and those are things that, you have to look at the trade-off. Sometimes because I have ferrets as pets and their lifespan is very short. And one of the things that goes around amongst the people that I know that have ferrets is that, the best gift we give to them is being able to let go at the end. And I think you have to look at, life as a whole as being, it's a journey, and the people that you surround yourself with and the ones that you're close to, sure, you could push them away and not want to have them in your life because you're afraid that, oh, well, what's going to happen if I lose them? Well, you have to hold on to those memories. Like, those memories will fuel you and make you feel good. Like, they will, you can feel the joy in all of the things that you experience together. And so I would rather deal with the pain and have the memories than to push people out and build a wall around myself.
Absolutely.
That was kind of deep.
Yeah, it really was.
We went to a deep place on that.
We're capable of that sometimes, people, don't we?
We are. I just wasn't expecting it, I guess.
We're capable of having actual thoughts and deep conversations more than movie fun. So we're worth something, right?
So now I think that we should move on to Quinn, because she's kind of the protagonist. Part of her story and Elise's story are intertwined.
Yeah.
So I think now it's time to really get into the meat.
Yeah, which I really just threw the Brenner family all into one thing. I didn't even have Sean really as a separate, because just a lot of it is this family dynamic. And then Alex is the little brother. He's the foster of this movie. It's like he's there, but like,
but I liked him.
Is he though?
I mean, really? I thought he was fantastic. He's the one who finds Tucker and Specs.
Yeah,
he's like trying to defend them when his dad goes on a rampage. And I think he supports his sister. Like, I think he's a good little brother.
Yeah. Yeah, there are worse movie little brothers in existence.
Absolutely.
He's one of the good ones, I guess. Yeah, he's. But yeah, so these Brenners, again, we've talked about Quinn going and talking to Elise, which, again, it just got really ominous and scary. I think it's not what she was expecting or bargaining for. I feel like she's feeling like leaving Elise's house. She's like, I just wanted a little peace of mind and connection with my mom. I didn't want a bunch of super terrifying warnings about the dead in the realm of the dead. Like, that's not what I was here for.
Well, you have to think, if you're a Quinn and you start having these weird things happening, that maybe it's all psychological, because you've just gotten into your head about Elise's warnings.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, not really. That's not what happened with Quinn. She had some real serious issues to deal with.
Yeah, and I was trying to figure out, where exactly does the connection to the man, this entity, really begin? And I wonder if it's kind of what I put together, and I could be wrong, is because we see Elise telling Quinn, do not reach out to your mother anymore on your own. And I don't know, was Elise's failed attempt at reaching to Lily, did that make it worse? Is that really what kind of blew things out of proportion, to where it was like, I went in and I may have opened up some more doors that made it more dangerous for you. It might be my fault a little bit. And maybe mixed with Quinn's desire to connect with her mom, while there is an insidious entity also there that can use that desperate, need for connection to lure her in and to connect and latch onto. But then I also think that maybe Elise's part did make it worse.
I think initially Quinn's contact or reaching out started like a little tear in the rift.
Mm-hmm.
And then Elise kind of punched a hole in.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. And we've talked before about grief on this show. When you're looking at someone who is 17, 18 years old, has lost their parent, one of their parents, there is grief that you get over losing a parent that is so difficult to explain. And so I related to her in this movie, because I went through similar things myself. Like, you do, because you can't just pick up a phone and call someone or see somebody and talk to them, because they're just not there anymore. And they're such a big force in your life. So I related to her in that respect, but I do believe and agree with you. I think Elise punched a hole and made it worse. And I'm glad that she cleaned up her mess, because I would not have wanted something to happen to Quinn.
Yeah. And, Quinn, I like the character of Quinn. She's a little quirky, artsy, creative type, different ways. I mean, the first thing you see her wearing this Pixies tank, and you're like, okay, well, you got great taste in music. And I'm looking at like the posters and stuff on her walls, and it's like, all right, well, yeah,
she's a cool chick. She's cool.
Yeah. She's got a blog where she's taking food pictures, maybe a little, you know what? You do you. I'm a big foodie too. I don't really take pictures. I do in certain cases. You do. So I do. Sometimes. I don't have a blog though. I just have Instagram. But
don't you remember? That was a big thing.
Yeah.
Like, food pictures for some people are a really big thing.
Mm-hmm. And then, she's a theater kid also. So it's like that very artsy, creative side where she's auditioning to go to a theater school in New York, and she's got like posters. Like she's got like a Midsummer Night's Dream poster on her wall and all these things. I don't think I knew very many 16, 17, 18-year-old girls, not to like, make generalizations on gender, but like, because I knew some like guy friends, but like I don't know in like high school many girls who are like, oh yeah, I'm gonna sit up and be reading Clockwork Orange. Like
exactly,
that's not,
that's not a Clockwork Orange is not a little light reading,
right?
Okay, it's not. That stuff is gonna keep you up at night.
Mm-hmm. So as we see that maybe she has more of this connection to some of the other kind of realms and worlds out there because her brain is very open to a lot of things, and she is this very unique and quirky person. Getting ready for school. Yeah, I do have one note, like with Alex, I was like, yeah, her like waking him up. I was like, yeah, that is just classic young boy before school. I have been there. I've been him. And also I have 2 younger brothers, so I've been on her side of this exchange too. Many mornings, many times. So yeah.
You were a young boy once?
Who'd have thought, right? It's crazy. Yeah. And then, of course, when his dad, when Sean is going back in there to like get him ready, show him that ass whooping face, he's watching a video online, and I wonder who he's watching. Wink, wink, nod, nod. We get back to that later.
A few familiar faces that we know and love.
Mm-hmm. But then Quinn takes off, goes to her audition, which she sees there. She's asking if her mom's there, which I guess she was, but also what she's seeing is this other spirit.
The waving guy. That's what I called him at first, because he's just waving.
This entity that has attached itself to her. And maybe that gets in her head a little bit. I mean, she's more confused than anything, but there's just a lot going on to where she kind of blows her audition for James Wan. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's not every day that you get to audition for James Wan.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying. It's a big deal.
Yeah, it's funny. You hear his voice and then it like cuts over to him, and I was like, James Wan! I forgot he's in this.
Yep. It's all he had time for because he was busy. I think he was making a Fast and the Furious movie at the same time. Mm-hmm. So he didn't have time to do like the directing like he did.
He did Fast 7, I believe.
There's so many of those, and I haven't seen a single one.
Which I remember when that was a thing. I remember when it was announced that he was directing. I think it was the 7th one. Or was it 5? Either way, one of them. But when he was doing one of the Fast movies, I was like, really? James Wan? I was like Insidious and Dead Silence, James Wan.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't make sense because you think about it, there's not going to be any knives and, I don't know, spirits and craziness. Yeah, there's not, I don't think there's any of that in there. I couldn't tell you because I haven't seen a single one. Ben could tell us.
Uh-huh. I've seen all of them.
You have?
I am.
I didn't think that would be, well, no, you like everything anyway.
But yeah, afterwards, Quinn's already kind of distracted by her like disappointment and blowing the audition, and then this creepy waving old man in an oxygen mask. It just distracts her a little bit more, enough to get hit by a car. There's like,
I forgot
there's
about
nobody
that.
out there. It's like you just. I think the driver's a little bit at fault. The man in the oxygen mask was driving the car. No,
I don't know, but I can tell you this. I forgot about it. Like, I forgot that she gets hit by a car. So when it happened, I jumped because I wasn't prepared for it. It was a surprise.
Yeah. But then that's where we see kind of the difference. You mentioned it earlier with the astral projection. I made that kind of joke, and that's where we get a lot of the connection in the other movies. But yeah, where this one's different is Quinn isn't an astral projector.
No.
But because of this accident where she gets hit by a car, it is a near-death experience. She does slip away. She is dying in the hospital after, and they're able to bring her back. But within that little bit of limbo where she was, her spirit had drifted from her body like astral projection, but it's a little different. But we know it can happen when somebody does things like that in these movies. She's kind of in this limbo in between. Yeah, it's not a lipstick face demon or Parker Crane in a black dress, but she's unwillingly made a dark spiritual companion of her own in some way even deeper. Yeah.
Yeah, he's kind of latched on and taken half of her. At least that's what Elise surmises later, is that that's when half of her became ingratiated into the world of the man who can't breathe.
Yeah, and she's back home and kind of getting set up. Grace, the elderly neighbor, says some real creepy shit to her about the man who can't breathe, waiting for her in her room. And I'm like, just keep that shit to yourself. Lady. I don't know why. That you're not helping anybody by telling her that.
I felt like Grace was going to mean more in this movie than she did. Mm-hmm. Even the little bit she means, like, later, it's not enough for me. No, I feel she was
just like the little piece of the puzzle that Leigh Whannell needed to be like, how do we get this information across? How does this make sense? There's this lady. That'll take care of it.
I guess.
Yeah. Also, Quinn, Hector very clearly has a crush on you. Like, accept it.
Yes. I think she has, though.
Yeah.
No, I think she did.
At first, she's kind of like, when Alex is giving her some trouble about it, or her friend, I forget her friend's name, Haley Kiyoko.
Maggie.
But,
Maggie.
Yeah. Is, kind of going like, oh, and Hector. And at first she's just like, no, he doesn't love me. Like, it's not this thing. It's like, just accept it. But then she does. Yeah.
And they're banging on the walls. Like, they have some sort of communication where they knock on the walls together.
I don't know how their relationship goes after this movie. I wouldn't accept all that much, but...
No. No, but I mean, she's laying...
But if you assume that that's what happens later in their lives, that's fine.
She's laying in bed, and she bangs on the wall with her hand.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
She does. It's a kind of, like... I get the feeling that they've done that before. Like, she knocks on the wall with her fist, and then there's knocking back, and I get the feeling that it's the two of them. Like, that's communication.
I think my joke went, like...
No, it did not.
Okay.
I know exactly where you were going and what you were thinking. Yes.
No.
And I wanted to point out what I actually meant, not just what your joke is.
Okay. But yeah, as she's set up. So we'll talk Hector stuff. I didn't, of course, make a note, though, of course, that Sean really doesn't seem to know his daughter very well right now.
No.
He seems pretty checked out of her life. I can't hold too much blame. Yeah, again, he is a grieving, newly single parent through a, unfortunate way, who's just trying to hold things together after his wife's death. So you can't blame him too much for...
No.
He's in his own dark space right now.
He is. But I really think at times, because he was in that place, his expectation of her was a lot. I mean, it was a lot. I mean, she even says at one point, my father just expects me to stay here and raise my brother. Mm-hmm. And that's not really okay. Like, as a parent, you kind of, when you have kids, you kind of, I think, have to pull yourself out of there and back to the real world. But, I get that it would be really difficult because you're trying to just keep it together for yourself and for the kids. But in the meantime, you're kind of driving your daughter away a little bit because of what you're expecting out of her. Like, she's doing the grocery shopping. Mm-hmm. And it's like, that's just a lot. I think that family had just been through so much.
Yeah.
And at first I was kind of like, you're expecting a lot out of her. But then by the end of the movie, I'm like, he really loves his kids and he loves his family. And I think, honestly, this pulled him out of where he was.
Yeah.
And he needed that so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then the scene you're talking about, the tapping on the walls between them. It is a good thing Quinn seems to, again, with this kind of quirkiness of her, has a pretty dark sense of humor, because Hector writing, "You're a traffic stopper," a real traffic stopper on her cast. It's gold. It's great.
It is amazing.
But only for the right personality. Like,
right.
certain people wouldn't take to that as well. But I'm like, it's a good thing. And again, it's like, yeah, like you said, I'm sure there has been quite a blossoming friendship between them in some capacities, because he would know her well enough to be like, this is okay. Yeah.
I love that she's, like, as a sign of the times, she's using a T-Mobile sidekick.
Yeah. Old tech alert. But yeah, that was really unsettling scene. You take a really cute moment and turned it into abject horror, right? With the knocking on the walls and flirting with Hector a little bit, and only to then get the text reveal that he's not even home. And then things get, like, super uneasy as you're just waiting there, because you see her, like, sitting with that. And then you're just like her, you're waiting in this stillness and silence, anticipating
what's coming next.
And then boom, there's an arm. You know, I do wonder, though, if the tapping was her mother at any point. Like, that
it might have been.
The nicer part of it really was, because we do learn later on that, like, Lily, her mother is there, also is trying to form this connection. At the same time, it's not just the evil entity, but I don't know.
And you know what?
This thing is up to some bad stuff.
The man who can't breathe doesn't strike me as the tapping type.
Mm-mm.
He's much more an in-your-face and over-the-top type.
Yeah.
Tapping seems a little too
subtlety
nonchalant.
Is not really his thing.
No. So I do wonder about that too.
Yeah,
like,
then we get more banging from upstairs in another separate form, another different kind.
Oh, man.
With the cracks in the ceiling and all of that, which we see that those things are all very real, even in this realm of existence, because Sean sees the cracks forming and takes Ernesto up to the apartment above to investigate.
Well, that actually wasn't Ernesto. That was the super.
Oh, I thought it was the same
And his
person.
name, I think, is Mel.
No. They look like the same person to me in the dark.
In the dark, yes, maybe, but his name was Mel. Because I thought it was Ernesto also, and I'm like, wait a minute, is that him? Is he the super?
So I just assumed it was the same person. I was like, oh, Hector's dad is also, like, the supervisor of the building. Got it.
No.
Moving on. So I guess not. Anyway, whatever. But Sean and the mystery man go upstairs to investigate. And yes, like, the wet footprints on the floor and under the bed are all there for them to see. It's very eerie. Still, we never knew what that was. I wondered if we were going to get more backstory on this entity, and, like, why does he wear an oxygen mask, and why are the, like, weird tar, goopy footprints? And we got none of that, and I guess it's fine.
Well, I mean, we basically learned that he lived there a long time ago. That's all we really get.
That's about it.
You know, and that he used to get into people's heads and get them to commit suicide. Yeah. That we learned, but that's it.
Mm-hmm. But things escalate quite rapidly from here. I mean, you got an hour and 37 minutes of a movie. Like, let's kick it up. With Quinn waking up in her wheelchair upstairs, and then the entity behind her, grabbing her the chair and bringing her into the other apartment above theirs. And then again, this other thing that's up there, which turns out to be the other half of her soul, which that's just terrifying as its own thing. Luckily, Sean gets home in time to hear her screaming and runs up there, and he doesn't see anyone.
No.
But he does see anything.
Yeah.
I mean, the footprints are still there, so that's some kind of proof. We get the them leading to the broken window. And he looks out and does see the body of the man laid out on the sidewalk down there. But then when Quinn looks, it grabs her. So, yeah, things ramping up quite fast. And that's when it's like, and then Sean immediately goes to Elise. Like, the next scene is him knocking on the door. But it's like, there's that scene that doesn't exist in between where he's like, who the hell was this psychic? And take me to her now, because this, like.
Yeah, he, I think, trusts his daughter. He believes her. He knows it's something. There's something going on, and he's invested enough that he's going to start doing his own detective work, because he knows his daughter's life is at risk and he has to do something like any parent is going to do for their child. They're going to pull out all the stops and do what they can.
Yeah.
So he goes to see Elise.
Mm-hmm. And then, Elise, that stuff doesn't work. And then there's the Specs and Tucker stuff, which, again, I've got like they've kind of their own little section to talk about their adventure, their attempt.
They're amazing.
But, he's trying things, and then Elise shows back up, and she's got a plan of attack. She's more prepared. This is Insidious, so obviously you send the younger sibling or siblings away. That's what we do. That's a rule of Insidious.
It's a rule of Insidious. You're right.
All right, Alex, it's time for us to pretend you don't exist for the rest of the movie. Step on out.
But he was great. Like at that, just before that, he was like, I'm like, okay, little dude, you are good. You are a good little brother.
And then we talked about Elise, her kind of going in and all the things that she did. But then to end that is kind of, we'll circle back. Because I said, she grabs this other half of Quinn's soul. And then I was like, and then yada, 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 one thing ends. And then happily ever after. So now we'll go back to the yada yadas. Where Elise does take that soul, that spirit over, back, and Elise gets back into her body, but then McBreathy nabs Quinn at the last second. So now Elise is back, but then Quinn wasn't able to get back, and it's all hope seems lost. And then we get kind of these weird, let's throw things together and make it make sense, which is not too much of a complaint because it works well in what we're doing with the story. Grace had passed away a couple days before, so now she's there, and she's nosy as hell, even as a ghost, which is good for people.
Yep.
Because she's like, it's like, I've been dead for 3 days, and I already know that this lady's sending notes through the diary. Like she's in everyone's business.
Yes.
And so she's speaking to Elise to give her these, ideas of here's what you need to do, and then through that, Elise speaks back out to Lily and
pulls in the heavy reinforcements.
Yeah. Lily had been reaching out to Quinn, and so I still wonder if the knocking probably was likely her, but, we've seen this parasite latched onto Quinn's desire to connect. So Lily is here. Yeah, you bring in the big guns, and Lily's there. The light. Because we see earlier this creature, like entity, demon, man, McBreathy, closing all the windows and the doors and the laptop. Like, he thrives on darkness. And so
I think he also thrives on isolation and cutting the person off from anything and anyone that they connect with.
Yeah. And so it's kind of this 1-2 punch of Lily being this ultimate connection that Quinn has been looking for. And also you can tell she's coming from this realm of light.
Yes.
And
that's so visible and so beautiful and bright. Like the whole picture of them.
Looking like a Force ghost.
Yes.
But she comes in and she's able to give Quinn the strength that she needs. And then it's a pretty powerful thing. It's like you see her whispering into her ear, and there's like this like kind of ghostly figure in the further. But then it goes back to Elise doing her thing, and the group circled around holding Quinn's hands. And then as it circles around, you just get this quick like appearance, this reveal that Lily is there in the circle with them. And it's a really powerful visual.
It is.
And that's when Quinn comes back. And then, Lily's there to kind of speak to her through Elise. And we get that closure, like I mentioned, that they really needed. Which, surprisingly, Quinn's first words weren't, holy shit, my legs, they fucking hurt a whole lot. What the hell is happening?
Because I think that would be mine, because what we didn't mention is because of the accident, Quinn had both of her legs in casts.
Yes.
When the demon possessed her, she broke them off.
Yeah.
And she'd only had them on there for 3 weeks at the time.
Yeah.
And you can see, as the demon is trying to walk, that it's not real easy.
Yeah.
Because the legs are pretty messed up.
Yeah.
Watching that process.
You think her first words would just be screaming about the agony that she's in. But no, she's... Oh, that's so
maybe
nice.
She doesn't feel it as much because she's sitting.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's like, okay, well, if you try to stand up, you're going to be in horrendous pain. It's going to happen. You're going to want drugs. It's got to happen.
Yeah, but yeah, that's pretty much it where that ends there, at least for my notes, what I've got.
Yeah, I think that's really good. I think we've already talked about one of my things, which was about her dad and his reliance on her since her mom died.
Mm-hmm.
To just kind of be running the household, kind of, I guess. And it's not a role she wants. But I do agree with what I said a little bit ago, that I think that this experience brought him back into the world of being a dad and less of a person who's just hanging on.
Yeah.
Which is kind of where he was before, because he was just trying to keep everything going, and he just couldn't. I mean, it's almost like you're going so fast that you don't even know if something's working or not. You're just trying to get it done and move on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of how it looked from his perspective. So who do you want to talk about now, Pake?
I've just got a couple of notes about Specs and Tucker. This seeing them, this tag team of epic proportions back again. Always great to see them. And of course, we talked about the way that they get brought in is Alex is a fan of this spectral sightings team, aka Tucker and Specs. And, if Elise is unable to do something, then maybe these guys can. It's just him coming up with an idea. He's included.
He's trying.
He's got an idea. He's got something. Yeah.
He's trying to help because there just doesn't seem to be any direction. Sean can't figure out what to do.
Yeah. And so they come in, and in classic style, it's like they're the two characters that come in. It's like, all right, these are the people that we called to help. Like, where's the cameras? Ashton Kutcher, where are you? Like, yeah. I mean, Tucker's always snacking on something when he's introducing himself to people. It's Hot Pockets, Pop-Tarts. Now he's got a cupcake.
But he was also rocking a mohawk.
Yeah.
Okay, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
And they're dressed way down because this is not how we see them in the first movies. They've got like a white shirt and a black tie. They look like they're auditioning for Men in Black.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Specs has his Casper hoodie, which I love that. That's fun. But yeah, they decide to help out and set up their stuff for an overnight there. And they're in for way, way, way more than they ever bargained for, right?
They've never experienced anything like this. They've done all their videos and all the things, they've reported on. They've never encountered a ghost or a spirit like this ever.
Right.
Like, it's just not something they've done.
Should have been like a red flag when Alex was like, oh, I love this that episode when you did this and this. And there's like, oh yeah, that was some of our best editing skills we've ever done. Like,
oh boy.
Why?
But I'm glad that they were pulled into this because we get the dream team that we've all been waiting for.
Yeah. Yeah, because we see, and we talked about a little bit, you mentioned, because Quinn is up in the middle of the night, which with 2 broken legs shouldn't happen. That doesn't make sense. But then we see, the man who can't breathe has finally taken full possession of her for this time. And really his only goal was to take possession of her so that he could have her kill herself right in front of her father. It's just this thriving off of pain and feeding off of darkness, pulling the living into the dark, because he's like, all right, cool. I pull her in. And then what kind of spiral does that set Sean onto? And then he can be my next victim and I can latch onto that depression and that pain.
And exactly, because that's what he feeds on. As you said, the fear, depression, angst, anxiety, frustration, sadness.
Yeah.
Those are all music to his ears.
Mm-hmm. And then, so that whole possession scene is just like super intense. We get, leg bones cracking. Yikes. Eyeballs in throats. Not fun.
Oh my God. That's so freaky. Yeah. And she, you know what? She was like bashing them with a wrench. Mm-hmm. Tucker and Specs were like getting beat on too. And oh man. And she grabs a box cutter. Or he inhabiting her body, grabs the box cutter.
Yeah. And then Elise shows up at the right time, with Tucker backing into her in the hall and then startling. It cracks me up so hard. Like, I'm laughing so hard out loud watching that, because it's just, I don't know, it's just his response of, like, Sean's yelling at him, like, get out, what are you, kind of some internet pranksters, what are you doing, you know, this is real stuff, my family's in danger and you're here trying to profit. And Alex is sitting there trying to, like, no,
don't hurt them, he was defending them.
And then Elise is just there, and it's just Tucker's reaction. It cracks me up every time. I love it.
It's funny because she's just kind of like, you know, oh, you can stay. You might be you know, you might be helpful. And she puts them to work. She assigns them tasks because Tucker is the technology guy and he can make everything work. And Specs is the writer, so he basically is told to sit down and write everything that she says down.
Yeah,
and I love that.
She keeps them around for their skills. They're not completely useless. So yeah, we see that's the start of this team that we've got to know and love with these movies. Luckily, through, you know, and the other first two movies we've watched, we know that Specs does get much better at transcribing Elise over a little bit of time.
He does. He does. He's a little noisy this time around, and Elise has to kind of get him to quiet down now. Simmer down now.
Mm-hmm.
To get him to focus on what he's supposed to be doing. Because at the beginning, he's writing all these things that he doesn't really need to write down.
Yeah. What we call this realm? Let's call it the Further. I like it. Well, that's a cool name.
Yep, and
which is a great meta joke, being him delivering that line, being the, like, writer of these movies. It's fun.
It is, right? Do you think he must have had a blast writing himself this way? You know he had to. I mean, it's kind of...
He's great at playing and portraying these, like, weird, socially awkward things. Because you mentioned Doug from Cooties. Without getting into specifics, people who haven't seen it, go watch Cooties. Go watch it. He's hilarious. Just hilarious. Yeah. It's he like, is. What if Specs was, like, 3 times as socially inept, like, and bad with people? Yeah.
But I love that Elise tells them at the end that, you know, they balance each other out and they need each other. Mm-hmm. Because I don't know... With Specs, I don't think it's something that's on his mind, but I think Tucker really believes that he doesn't probably need Specs at times. Mm-hmm. That he can probably do it by himself. But I love that Elise kind of is like, no, you know, you guys need each other. And I loved the response when she starts talking to them about what maybe they could dress a little better. And when she says, shirt and tie might be nice. And Tucker's like, ain't gonna happen. And it's like, and yet it is.
Yeah.
I'm like, you saying ain't gonna happen reminds me of just about every guy I know that doesn't like to dress up. So it's like, okay, yeah. You say it's not gonna happen, but when you need to, you do. So, yeah.
Yeah. Anything else on them?
I don't think so. Oh, one more thing. Did you notice what the license plate on their van said?
No, I did not.
Spextaker. Spextkr. It's perfect, right?
I think they've had that through the other movies.
Yeah, they have. But I don't know that we've ever pointed it out. So.
Yeah.
And I only have one other note about it, anything. It's basically, I really got, when I was watching it and Sean went down into the lobby and was talking to Harry, I really, every time they were in the lobby, got, like, these vibes of the Overlook for some reason. I don't know why, but
the patterns on the rug in the hallway for their apartment building definitely give those vibes for sure.
That's on purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't realize that until I was looking into it. I'm like, oh, okay, now I get it, because it gave me those vibes so much, and then I looked into things and it's like, okay, yeah, it makes sense. Yeah,
I definitely noticed that too. Just that's in my brain space heavily right now. We just covered Dr. Sleep, and then for those who listened to the Dr. Sleep episode, where I mentioned like, oh, I want to jump back into The Shining and Dr. Sleep and read the books. Since that time has passed since we covered that, I have been doing that, and I'm like almost halfway through The Shining right now. So yeah, so it's definitely in my headspace right now, The Overlook and all those kind of things, because I've been reading it. So yeah.
I'm glad. I'm proud of you because you said you wanted to do it and you're doing it. So that's awesome.
Yeah. So let's see. Any other notes that I have? I just pointed out a couple of notes about the spirits, the demons, this thing, which I think I've covered most of them. Talk about like, yeah, just the music that comes with them. I love the strings and stuff. Start with the creepy stuff early in the movie, small, and then let it build. It's a classic formula, but it works really well. You know, like the first time we really see something happening post-accident, and, you know, Quinn is laying there in bed at night and her bell rings real quickly. And then so she's like, rolls over to look at the bell and she's confused, and then you see the like figure emerge from the shadows behind her, but then that's all you get for now for the time being. And it's like, yes, you start small, build it. I love it.
Builds up the anticipation, and you know it's coming, but you can't prepare yourself enough for the fact you're going to probably jump when you see it for the first time.
Or when she's on I want to say Zoom, but you know what? Zoom wasn't really, it was probably Skype at that time.
Skype was really big at that time.
So yeah, when she was talking to her friend online there, and she's like, you know, is that Alex beside you? It's like, what are you talking about? It's like, the person that's right beside you, like those things. But then she freezes. I'm like, wait, this evil demon can make the internet cut out? I was like, oh shit. Is the man who can't breathe living in my apartment with me too?
No, he just works down with, what is it, Optimum? Or
yeah, it's like, it's like, oh no, I don't have any evil demons in here that I know of. It's just shitty internet provider. This episode of Run for Your Lives definitely brought to you with no help from Optimum. But I did get a direct link hardwire Ethernet cable for Christmas, and I've been using it, and knock on wood, we've been doing great since then.
It's been fantastic. Because I've gotten pretty good at editing, and I have to tell you, there have been times that Pake and I have been recording this podcast, and he is ahead of me, or I'm ahead of him, and we can't even respond. Usually by the last, 10 minutes of the podcast, we're not on the same time at all. But we've been able to make it work, but now it's so much better.
Yeah. So I guess confirmed theory, Optimum Internet is actually just an evil demon entity from the further who feeds off of people's frustration with shitty internet connection.
I
think 100%
believe, yes.
Yeah,
early favorite for Monster of the season?
Could be. Yeah, another great fun gag, of course, having the spirit walking towards Quinn from out of the window. Again, this time when she sees it. And then it just, drops. Through the floor, onto the floor, whatever. It's a really cool gag. But then, of course, you follow it up with, the stupidest moment. I'm like, girl, really? Really? You're going to just crawl over across the bed and look over the edge of the bed. You are asking for it at that point.
You are, because I would never do that. I was always scared. Even at 17, I was scared about what could be under the bed. Because it's just ridiculous when you're a kid. Things creep you out.
Yeah, and then the whole following scene, of course, because she's looking under the bed, and then it grabs her from above and throws her off the bed, and then you get him closing the doors and the lights, and that whole scene is just so intense. And
it is.
Oh, man.
It's cutting her off from everything. It's making everything dark. I mean, what more could he ask for? He gets to feed on her being terrified, and it's dark.
Yeah.
His two favorite things.
So now she's sleeping on the couch, and then even then, the cracks and the sounds coming from above her, and it's just dude, why are you so obsessed with me? But yeah, I mean, we've watched these movies. We know, they crave life. They crave,
yep.
Of course, his is a little different. Doesn't really crave life as much as he craves snuffing it out, or draining it and taking it from, and
he wants to bring you into his world so you can suffer with him.
Yeah. And then just the Elise going in and seeing that these other spirits, other entities that are in this area are the previous victims of this entity, the man. And they know that he has a new pet. They're like, oh, he's leaving us alone for a little bit because he's got somebody new he's playing with.
Yep. Yeah. And that's when Elise kind of realizes just that this has been going on for a while. That he's been draining people for a while.
Yeah. But yeah, that's all the notes
I think we did it, Pake. Let me see. I don't think I have another thing. I think we've done everything. Yep, the red door, the carpet. Yep, we have everything. We've done everything that's on my notes.
We did it!
Yay!
And look, it's not like 2-hour to 2.5 hour episode this time. It's the first in a couple of weeks. We've been going long lately.
We have been going long.
Stuff. So, it's good to kind of just another like hour and a half Blumhouse horror movie that's easy to talk about, but still a fun time. Doesn't take all night. And I'm good with that sometimes.
Me too.
I've had fun with some of these deeper dives on some like more in-depth movies, whether it's because of the really deep stories they're telling, like Dr. Sleep was, or more of just a lot of background information and nerd out time like Dungeons & Dragons was.
Exactly. It's been a lot of fun. Those are good. And I know we have one that I think will be kind of long coming up maybe in a couple of weeks. But it's good to sit back and do one that's a little bit easier to talk about.
Yeah, it was fun. Always good to keep trucking through the Insidious movies and revisit this world for a little bit. Always good.
Absolutely.
All right, we did it there. There goes the feedback phone. So perfect timing as always. See if anybody had some thoughts. All right, we do have one little bit of feedback this week coming straight to us from Catherine. Catherine, you've become like the rock hard, solid ground on which we record.
Yes.
We're always can rely on you to come through. And always with like really great stuff too. So keep it up. You're awesome.
Yes.
But anyway, she says right here about Insidious 3. I've only seen the first 2 Insidious movies, and for the first 30 minutes my subtitles didn't work, so all the blasts of noise for jump scares were extremely effective. All of my animals quickly abandoned the room and never returned. Poor Quinn, still a kid yet expected to take care of her dad and brother while mourning her mother and trying to figure out her future. And then she has to deal with a demon who won't even let her keep her leg casts. I was pleased to see her brother show some affection. It was really cool how he was the reason Specs and Tucker met Elise. I think the only time I laughed was when Tucker initially meets or runs into Elise behind him and makes this great gasp of surprise. Yeah, as you've listened to this now already, I was harking on that moment too. I thought that was really funny. Oh. And then you're also with Daphne on like the Alex love. He's like a not terrible little brother, as a lot of movies have. So
yeah.
She continues on. I'm not sure when, but there was a shift at some point when I found myself enjoying seeing the relationship between Elise, Specs, and Tuck develop more than following Quinn's family. Somehow Elise's premonitions of her eventual death made the ending of the first Insidious more satisfying. I'm very interested in seeing what's next in the series now.
Well, Catherine, that we are going to do Insidious Chapter 4. I think it's called The Last Key.
So there's 2 movies left. It's The Last Key, I think. And then The Red Door is the last one that exists as of now. So
yeah.
2 more movies to go.
I know, but there's more coming.
I haven't seen anything on that, but you mentioned that before. Without spoilers, I don't know where they're going to go after Red Door, but sure, let's do it.
Let's just go down a whole new world.
Yep, you can go further and further in the further. There's how much further is further? There's further in the further, but so much further down. I don't know.
Well, if you would like to submit your feedback like Catherine did, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Run for Your Lives Podcast. You can email us, runforyourlivespodcast@gmail.com. And if you are enjoying the show, tell your friends. We are available on all the podcast players, including Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. You can always go to runforyourlivespodcast.com for all those links that you're ever going to need. And if you have a minute, give us a review on Apple Podcasts, as that is the best way to share the love and get us out there even more. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Always appreciate the feedback. Thank you. Thank you so much. Hope to hear from you and more of you all the time. Always love the feedback. But of course, speaking of sharing the love, got to get those shout outs to things going on in the podcast universe around us right here in Podcastica. Of course, still a lot of rewatch stuff going on. With Revisited, going over Ted Lasso, still slaying through season 3 of Buffy. And then the cast of us who has been rewatching The Walking Dead took a little break this week to cover something different. Lucy, Jason, and Karen got together to talk about Return of the Living Dead this week over on the cast of us.
Pake, have you ever seen Return of the Living Dead?
I haven't seen Return. I don't think so.
Yeah. It's of a different vein.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's all I'm going to say.
That's one I don't think I've seen yet, but maybe sometime.
I think you're going to have to. If I have to put it on our list so we cover it, so you see it, then I will.
Yeah, maybe. Also, Marvel TV cast still going through Echo over on Disney+. You go check that out as well. And then, lastly, of course, got to give some shout out to the bi-weekly releases of Welcome to the Apocalypse, the comedy improv podcast, new to Podcastica. Got some just hilarious moments of, improvised comedy of this group of characters surviving the apocalypse together. Follow Margaret and Angry Adam and Elizabeth on their just insane journeys, with a lot of guest cast and all kinds of stuff popping in and out. It's something I look forward to every time they release a new episode. I cannot wait to listen, so it's so much fun. Definitely go check that out. This episode is episode 5, and the survivors are going on a shopping spree at the mall. Yeah, so that's about that. And then outside of Podcastica, of course, always give our love to TV Podcast Industries, also doing their coverage of Echo as well. And I'm sure lots of other great stuff coming up soon. We'll always keep you tuned into what's going on. But that's about it for that. But otherwise, you can always come back right here to Run for Your Lives, because you know we're going to have something fun for you next week. In fact, Daphne, why don't you tell them what we got fun for them next week?
Well, way back in episode 43, we covered a movie by J.A. Bayona, his 2012 film The Impossible, which of course was based on the 2004 tsunami in Thailand. Next week, we're discussing Bayona's 2023 Oscar-nominated film Society of the Snow. It's based on the 1972 rugby team's airplane crash in the Andes Mountains and the subsequent ordeal and rescue of the team.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun.
Yeah.
Oscar season!
Yeah, it's always fun when we get to throw in a little Oscar-nominated film.
Mm-hmm.
Always appreciate it.
Yeah. Society of the Snow will be... Yeah, it's something, for sure.
It's real deep, and it's a story that I have researched quite a bit, so I'm really excited to be able to talk about it and do it in the Run for Your Lives way.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely check that out. Go on to Netflix and watch that right now. And, give us your thoughts. We'd love to hear from everyone that wants to send in something on, Oscar-nominated film. It's just, it's heavy. It's a lot, but it's really good.
Yeah, and there's like a 38-minute documentary that goes with it, so check that out as well. Mm-hmm. But, as far as this podcast, we've reached the end of this episode. Thanks, everyone, for listening. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And if you have to run, you better run for your lives.
Bye-bye.